Okay, here we have our 16-point unit circle. And it's always a challenge sometimes for students when they're beginning to remember the unit circle. And those of you guys who are going into calculus, the memorizing of this unit circle is really a necessity for success. And in our particular class, we're going to have a quiz on this in a couple days. And so what we have, some of you may have seen me, before I talk about that, the key components of the unit circle are, first of all, degrees. We have in blue, and we have increments of 30 degrees. The 360 degrees in the unit circle is divided into 30 degree segments: 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, etc. And also into 45 degree segments. So we have 0, 45, 90, 135, 185, 225, 270, 315, 360. And then all these angles also need to be written in radians. And so by simply, if you have degrees, is it easy to figure out what radians are?
Yep.
And what do we do to find radians from degrees? Okay, Alex says multiplied by pi over 180. He is exactly correct. But then, the last part, the most difficult part, is to remember what these coordinates are of these 16 points in the 16-point unit circle. And what I'm going to do is explain to you really how to remember what these coordinates are in the first quadrant. And for that, I hope you remember, some of you, that I had a unit circle t-shirt that I've worn to class. You've seen this? And if you remember, simply the numbers 0, 4, 13, 22, 31, and 40 in this kind of configuration, you're well on your way to memorizing the coordinates of the first 5 points in this quadrant of the unit circle. What's the first step in memorizing this, in using this to figure out what the points are? Okay, first step, separate the digits with commas. So here we have 5 commas. Next step is dividing each one of these digits by 2. Okay, what's the next step? Anybody remember the next step? It's to take the square root of each of these numerators, all the way of these 10 digits around the circle. So here we have 5 little square root symbols. And next we're just going to go to analyze. So what angle do we have down here along the x-axis?
0.
We have 0 degrees, which is also, of course, 0 radians. And what is the square root of 4? 2. What's 2 over 2? 1. So we have, at this point here, we have the point 1, comma 0. Of course, the cosine value is the x, the sine value y. Next, we go up to this next angle here, the number 31. What angle does that represent?
30.
30 degrees. And what is 30 degrees in radians?
Pi over 2.
Pi over
1.
pi over 6. Okay? And if you forget what it is, you just, like Alex said, you just multiply by pi over 180, you'll have it. So you don't even need to memorize it if you know how to convert it, right?
Yeah, I understand.
Now, next, we have square root of 3 over 2, so that stays the same. So that's our sine value, our cosine value, square root of 3 over 2. And then, what's the square root of 1? 1. So we have simply square root of 3 over 2, comma 1/2, and that's our cosine and sine coordinate pair, xy coordinate pair for this point on the unit circle. Next, what angle do we go up to here? That's a 45 degree angle, right?
Yeah.
And what is that 45 degrees in radians?
Pi over 4.
pi over 4. And for this one, our point, we don't have any simplification to do. We have the x or cosine value square root 2 over 2, y or sine value is also likewise square root 2 over 2. So we just take that. What is our next angle up here? 60 degrees, which is how many radians? Pi over 2. Pi over 3. Pi over 3 radians. Right? And here we have our x value is square root of 1 over 2. What's square root of 1? 1. So we have 1/2, and this one stays the same, square root of 3 over 2. Now, one thing that's of particular interest, you might remember from our study of inverse functions earlier in the year, where we had the x and y values switched for an inverse. Do you notice that inverse relationship between the cosines and sines between 30 degrees and 60 degrees? Okay. Lastly, we have this vertical point in the unit circle. What angle is this?
90.
We have 90 degrees, and what is this in radians?
Pi over 2.
Pi over 2, and we have square root of 0 over 2, which is 0, and square root of 2 and square root of 4 over 2 is going to be 2 over 2, which is 1. So here we have the 5 points in and surrounding the first quadrant of the coordinate plane, the unit circle, and we can just continue around the unit circle with the same increments. But over here, remember we have the whole acronym that says all students take calculus?
Yeah.
Okay, we know over here that the sines will be positive, but cosines and tangents will be negative. So what you're doing is for this 2 pi over 3, you're just flipping this coordinate pair about the y-axis, and so you have negative 1/2, comma, square root of 3 over 2. So the sine values are the same, and this again is for 120 degrees, or 2 pi over 3. And then you continue around, we have take in the third quadrant where the sine and the sine and cosine are negative and the tangent is positive. And lastly, we have the fourth quadrant, which in our acronym here we say calculus, which means what? Cosine is positive, but what is negative? Sine and tangent. So that's a basic summary. So I want you to remember that, and I'm going to give you a blank sheet, and you're going to fill this out, and I hope to get a really good mark on this. Thank you for viewing.